Thanks so much, Nigel. No, that's great. And thank you for inviting me. I look forward to telling you about it. And you'll be very welcome at the end to ask any questions. So you'll see on the screen a map of where it is. I'm sure you're all very aware of where it is, but in North Australia, and obviously many thousands of years ago, it was connected to Australia. So particularly in the south of the island, there's quite a lot of Australian influence. But to the northeast, where you've got New Ireland and New Britain. New Ireland, particularly, was never ever connected to New Guinea, and consequently, a lot of these islands again have got a lot of endemics. And further to the east, you've got New Caledonia that split off from Gondwana land very early on, and again has got a lot of unique and special species like the cuckoo, which I hope to be seeing in a few weeks' time. But tonight, let's talk about, as Nigel says, both the east part, the Papua New Guinea, and West Papua, owned by Indonesia. So the history of the island, well, in about 1880, it was split north-south with Germany having the north and Britain having the south. We handed it all over to Australia in 1902, and then they had it for the First World War, and particularly in the Second World War, there was a lot of fighting with 200,000 Australians mainly and Japanese deaths. But you're here to hear about the birds, and it's a place that I've been very excited about visiting. I went first 10 years ago. I went to the East, Papua New Guinea, and I'd obviously read the various books and seen pictures like this, when Attenborough first got there and was bravely thrusting his hand forward to shake the locals and like shake the locals' hands and meet them, and I was pretty excited to get there too. And I was quite pleased to see that when I got there, it wasn't much different. So these are Hooly Wig men with their birds of paradise headdress and feathers. Um, and yeah, it's very tribal still. There's over 800 languages um, still talked. And the first humans got to Papua New Guinea, they think about 50,000 years ago. And they think that they've been doing agriculture in Papua New Guinea for the last 7,000 years. And we shouldn't forget that there is still a lot of concern about witchcraft. And even when I was there the first time 10 years ago, there was an issue where a few people were arrested for eating babies in a nearby village. And you'll see the headline in the Telegraph. So there was a witchcraft law that came into force in the 1970s that banned quite a lot of activities with a 2-year prison sentence. And in the last 20 years, there hasn't been too many cases, but there's still a few. And not just the witchcraft, there's still a lot of tribal fighting. So even last year, there was a village massacre where rival villages came over and killed 49 villagers in a small Enga community to the north of Port Moresby. And it happens a lot. And one book, if you are interested in Papua New Guinea, I would definitely recommend reading is Tim Flannery's Throwing Way Leg, which is much a bit like the walkabout in Australia, but throwing away leg is when Papua New Guineans go on a wander to either hunt or explore or go back to their tribal homelands. Um, but one of the things really with the fact that there are such sort of strict and discrete little communities living in these mountain valleys. So you often get communities that hardly leave their valley in historic times because they'd be fear of being killed by neighboring villages, but now just sort of the way of life. And yeah, that Tim Flannery book goes into a lot of the issues and history of how the tribal action has taken place. So I certainly recommend that. So, as you look across from the Highlands, you will see a typical scene such as this, little settlements, often sort of slash and burning, create little farmsteads. Um, Obviously, still a lot of forest, thankfully for the birds, but as you can see on that picture, lots and lots of fires burning. And amongst the fires, you'll find little self-sufficient homesteads like these, and they are very much keen gardeners, and these sort of mountain gardens are sort of typical and all very much owned. And if you wander into them birding, you'll probably be paying the local owner some fee to carry on birding there. But they're very much in touch with their livestock. Here's a gentleman moving his pigs along barefoot, and normally friendly, but there's been quite a few instances of bird watchers having run into the locals when they don't quite understand the customs. And this isn't my picture, but I felt showed the sort of close living nature with their livestock. But what you probably will meet are hunters, and despite me trying to be camouflaged, they didn't seem to worry and had been equally quite successful despite being in the football tops, etc. A lot of the mammals sadly have disappeared from um, the country. I didn't get a photo of it, but once when we were walking into the forest, a group of hunters like this came out with a tree kangaroo strapped between them. Um, Fortunately, a lot of shamans that have now disappeared used to manage to keep the protection of tree kangaroos by saying how they were former spirits of their elders. But in more recent decades, that's disappeared a lot. But anyway, pretty friendly group of hunters. So obviously, birds of paradise are one of the key draws to the place. And sadly, our first bird of paradise, and this is the king bird of paradise, was ornament. Instead of having fluffy dice on the rear view mirror of the truck we were in, they had sadly a kingbird of paradise. And we were off to see a kingbird of paradise lek, and it's in the Tarry region, which is famous for quite a lot of tribal fighting. So in the top right, my German mate, Roland, is on either side of him, sharing a couple of well they call them bomber boys, but basically they're locals with either clubs or machetes, and they ride with you on your bus or truck. And if there's any problem, i.e., other locals putting logs across the road or trying to stop the vehicle, they jump out and sort it out for you. Luckily, we didn't have any issues, but as you'll probably see on the windscreen, bottom right of that windscreen, that bus was shot at by a catapult, and the occupants taken off only a couple of weeks before we got there. But fortunately, we did see proper kingbird of paradise in the wild. They tend to be tops of the trees, so I apologise. And I apologise for the quality of my photos throughout this. I only use a bridge camera, and so hopefully you can get a sense of what it's like. But it's not a great big mirrorless zoom lens, I'm afraid. So, king bird of paradise, absolutely fantastic birds, bright blue legs and little spirally tail plumes. And one of the good areas to go to is Ambua Lodge, and this is the manicured lawns of Ambua Lodge. It's an area, as I say, close to the Tarry Gap that has had quite a lot of conflict. So this lodge gets closed down periodically, and it's a bit of a gamble whether it's all okay to go there, but fortunately it was for us. And one of the beauties of lodges is they feed. So you will get some amazing views of birds of paradise and lots of other species. So this is a brown sicklebill, busy chomping away on its papaya. Here's a ribbon-tailed strapia, another stunning bird, again eating the fruit. Another one of the same ribbon-tailed strapia and the amazing sort of iridescent colours on its head. And this is a common smoky honeyeater, and they're a very common bird in the highlands, and there's quite a few different honeyeaters. But what's interesting then, when they get excited or annoyed, they manage to change the colour of the wattle around their eyes. So this is one in a relaxed or at ease pose, and here's a same species, just a bit more agitated and bright red flush to its wattle. And here's a Steller's lorikeet, another amazing bird that we often got around the lodges. Huge tail. And this is Belliford's melodectes, which again got the crazy eye of the honeyeaters, but again comes to fruit and pretty common throughout the Highlands, both in the east and the west of the country. And this is a Brame's tiger parrot. A few species of tiger parrot, but this is one of the more common ones. Quite a chunky thing that often's on the ground. And this is a blue-capped ifrit, which is in its own family, but it's also one of the few birds that's poisonous. So it secretes toxins into its flesh and feathers that obviously deters predators, but also stops humans eating them. And much like the pituhuis in South America, there ain't many poisonous birds, but the locals obviously soon learn which ones they are. And as you travel around Papua New Guinea, you're probably going to be on little planes like this. You see the bird of paradise on the tail fin there, but quite a lot of small airports, quite a lot of cancelled flights, quite a lot of confusion and disarray. You'll see the departure board, pretty basic, but it generally worked out for us. A bit of a free fall when the plane arrives at the other end and you have to go and get your baggage, but it all worked out most of the time fine. And the other thing you'll see on the streets or anywhere at all is little red spots on the floor of staining, and that's betel nut, which a bit of a sort of hallucinogenic or sort of stimulus effect, but virtually the whole country chews it constantly, mixes it with lime, which I don't think does you much good, and most of the locals don't have many teeth, the ones that chew it certainly. So one of the reasons for getting a plane such as that is to get to a bit more remote areas, and this is the Fly River. So sort of towards the south of the country, in the centre, a long river that again is a key thing to go down early morning to see 12 wild bird of paradise, but there's a mayfly, which is one of the reasons I'm sure that the Fly River's named. But anyway, onto the bops. So, bird of paradise, 12 wild bird of paradise, displaying from its tree perch in the morning. A lot of these birds of paradise do have key perches, and because of the rivalry and annoyance by some of the locals that other locals are making money from bird watchers going to perches and see the birds of paradise, they often cut them down. So it's been quite a problem And certainly blue bird of paradise, it's often quite hard to see, often suffers from just having a few sites where the perches do unfortunately get cut down by other annoyed neighbouring landowners. There's a Bligh's hornbill, again pretty common along the river, like many river trips. It's quite nice to get the the beat of the hornbill's wings over your head as you go past. And this is our welcoming committee, having paddle downstream for a few hours. Um, and this is our camp for the next thing nice. Quatu camp. Pretty basic. I think it's slightly better now, but I don't think a lot. Um, so yeah, um, just a wooden hut open to the mozzies, but a bit more habitable once you get the mattress down and the mosquito net on. But it's right in the middle of swamp forest, so really good habitat. And once we'd got ourselves together, it was great to go off exploring. And glad we brought our wellies because you are literally splashing your way through this sort of habitat for quite a while. It was quite interesting on one of these things on the trails one morning. Um, I thought it was someone. I was quite surprised there was anyone around actually. I assumed it was a local coming towards us, and it was a cassowary. But I only saw it for a few seconds before it died off. It was only me and the person in front saw it, and the rest of the group didn't. But it was quite bizarre. It's a bit like the sandhill crane story in the Fog and Farewell that you'll have probably heard about. Anyway, one of the key birds to see is crown pigeon. So this is a western crown pigeon, and they are huge. 75 centimeters, so largest pigeons in the world. There's a well, there was three of them, but they keep being split. So there's a few more now. This is another one, and this is Sclater's crown pigeon. The reason I included this picture was I was hoping you could sort of sense the size. This is on the side of a riverbank, but yeah, hopefully you can see just from the sort of fronds and the ferns how big a beast this is. And despite being such a beast, they're quite good at subtly walking off into the undergrowth and quite difficult to see often. And obviously, because they are so big and have so much meat on them, they're quite prized by the hunters. So pretty wary birds. This is a rufous-bellied kookaburra. You may be familiar with kookaburras, but there's quite a few good kookaburras and kingfishers throughout Papua New Guinea. And particularly in the west part, there's a lot of deforestation. As I say, it's Indonesia controlled, and there's a heck of a lot of deforestation, mainly for palm oil and plantations springing up that obviously don't have the bird diversity. But even on the edges of these plantations, you can get some good stuff. This is a Wallace's fairy wren, named after famous Wallace, obviously, that explored this area and gave his name to the Wallace's line when he got the divide between the Asian birds and the Australasian ones. Part of the family that the fairy wrens of Australia that you're probably very familiar with, but quite a stunner. And this is also quite a stunner. This is a yellow-capped pygmy parrot, and they're like little missiles flying around the forest. It's only 9 centimeters, so almost smaller than the blue tip. Really, it's difficult to tell in that picture, but it's a crazy little thing that erratically jumps about, and as I say, bombs around at such speed you can, in the dark forest, you can hardly see it really until it lands and starts calling. You work out where it might be. And often called the fried egg bird, but this is a yellow-bibbed fruit dove. Quite a lot of good-looking doves and pigeons, and this is up in the north on the island of Biak, and also on that island was claret-breasted fruit dove, another um, quite quite a stunning bird. And once you find some good fruiting trees, you've got a good chance of seeing the fruit doves. And another fruit lover, palm cockatoo, with its crazy sized bill. Another bird that's often in quite low density, probably again because it gets shot either with bow and arrow or catapults. But pretty cool to see. And another one that in the canopy normally, I'm afraid, but golden monarch, which yeah, likes a sort of the islands and the sort of coastal fringe. And I'm going to take you to the Arfak Mountains, which is in West Papua, and it's one place where the community is very keen to encourage tourists, but also protect the birds of paradise to ensure that they have got tourism coming in. So we're the only people staying in the village that those 3 days, but they were all out and either cooking for us, guiding for us, being really helpful. So that was quite good to see, and that's us setting off to one of the bird of paradise elects. But on the way, we saw this thing, which was a feline owlet nightjar. Feline as in the cat's whiskers, you can just about see on the right-hand side of the picture. But again, probably something we wouldn't, well, we would never have seen it without the locals' support and help finding it. And another owlet nightjar, this is mountain owlet nightjar. Again, brilliant birds, triptych plumage, great whiskers for detecting moths. Another picture of the same bird, but not same species, different individual, but same species. Mountain owlet nightjar. And let's talk about bowers for a bit. So this is a fawn-breasted bower bird nest. You'll be familiar with bowers, I'm sure. And there's lots of different species, and there's lots of crazy different bowers. This is the McGregors. So you've got this pole surrounded by thorny spikes, and then a mossy dancing area. And also, one of the birds I was always really keen to see, not because of its looks, but just because of the sort of David Attenborough programs I'd seen, was the Vogelkop bowerbird. So here's one, and if you're very naughty, you can move bits of coloured plastic into the wrong pile, and it will soon place it back where it belongs. It's obviously pretty sad to see the amount of plastics these birds and glass that these birds are taking. And they've even done studies where they've found that they need to be more than 5 miles from any human habitation, really, to find a bower where they're using more traditional berries and flowers rather than plastics. And obviously, the reason I suspect they use plastics for a lot of it is because they last so long and doesn't deteriorate like the flowers and berries. But quite a sad indictment on humans. And you will spend a lot of your time, particularly in West Papua, in highs waiting for birds of paradise, and which can be, well, can be boring, but obviously you've got the anticipation, but it can be a bit annoying with the amount of mosses, but it's part of the deal. And it generally pays off. And here's a magnificent bird of paradise on its display perch, flaring out its body to attract a mate. That's it from the back. Golden shield and mantle. And this is a lesser bird of paradise. So there's a few that look very similar, greater, lesser, and red, which I'll show you in a bit. And they do this fried egg display where they very raucously on the tops of the trees shake their wings and tail feathers. So, continuing our sort of well, heading along the mountain range. This is the Snow Mountains, again in West Papua, and it's also home to quite a stronghold of the Free West Papua movement. So you're probably aware of them, but basically, with Indonesia taking over what was this part of Papua or Irian Jaya, there was quite a lot of concern how Indonesians were coming over from Jakarta and changing the lifestyles of the locals. And one such area close to this, Waimina, that we went to, is a dry town, and that's in part to try and reduce the um, amount of trouble they have. But also, talking to the locals when we were there, they felt that actually by having a common language, Indonesian, it meant that there'd been a lot less fighting because whereas, as I say, got over 800 different languages spoken and people spoke a different language in a different valley. With a common language, it meant there could be more trade, they could move more safely and more freely between valleys. So it's quite split, and I think actually more the population, even the native population, are actually in favour of being Indonesian. But there's still quite an uprising from the West Papuan movement. And that road behind me there in the Snow Mountains that we travelled along had a curfew on it, so you had to be off the road by 3 p.m. in the afternoon, which obviously affected our night birding. But bizarrely, there was no time you couldn't start in the morning. So there's a few early mornings, getting up at sort of 2 a.m. to get up, so we could see nightjars and woodcocks and things. But to the east, or sorry, to the right-hand side of that road on that picture behind me there, was a village that the year before we went, all the Indonesian road workers had been killed by the locals, and that was why the curfew was still in place. And I know a few years, it was 3 years since I've been there, but I know the curfews have still been going on, and there's still been quite a lot of trouble. But fortunately, it was fine for us, and the main reason I wanted to go there was a bird I'd seen in books when I was a kid or teenage years, and it was this. McGregor's honeyeater was originally thought to be a bird of paradise, but now honeyeater, and also known as giant wattled honeyeater, and a crazy bird of the sort of lichen-covered mountain mossy forest, and seeing flocks of these fly across with the bright orange in the wing as they go, and the crazy head wattles is superb. So that was certainly one of my highlights from getting there. Here's a sub-alpine robin, quite a few robin species throughout the islands, and quite a nice one at the mountain tops. Here's an eastern crested berry pecker. You get east and west now, but quite, quite an impressive bird. Here's a chestnut forest rail. Again, there's a few forest rails, and often the lodges get them coming out underneath the sort of the feeders they have there. But this one was actually in the Snow Mountains on a little trail. This is a female, so you can't see it, but this is a red-cheeked parrot. But I just like the photo. I liked it looking out from its nest hole. So let's cover a few night birds. So this is Papuan frogmouth. Pretty impressive gape on it when it opens its mouth and chases after moths, and very different when you look at it from a different angle. But all night birds are good value and quite rewarding once you eventually manage to track them down. Here's a Biak scops owl, so restricted to the island of Biak, which island in the northwest of West Papua that's probably got about a dozen endemics on it itself. And here's a Papuan bubuk. hawk owl, but boobook is what they tend to refer them as. And as I said, I was welcome to do a few non-birds. So here's an atlas moth and a rhinoceros beetle, and we saw quite a few crazy insects. I have no idea what this is, some sort of blue weevil that was pretty big actually. You can't really tell from that picture, but it's probably a couple of inches long. Again, I'm afraid I don't know what species, but inquisitive snake. Quite a few more creepy crawlies, including some quite good hawk moths. It's one of those places where if you've got a light on out at night, you'll probably find quite a lot of good moths in the morning, and it's certainly worth checking the sort of loo block, etc., to see what there is in the morning. And here's a few more insects and butterflies. Afraid I don't know any of them. Obviously, that's the classic eyes to deter your predator. And finally, I'm going to finish with the island of Waigeo. So in the far northwest of West Papua, you've got what's known as the bird's head or the vogelkop, which is another area really high in endemism, but it's also the jumping off point for an island called Wago, which is at the east end of the Coral Triangle. So it's really good snorkeling. I had a couple of days where I did manage to go snorkeling. It's got one of the Rajarampa Islands, which is what you can see a taste of here. A lot of karst scenery. Um, it's got the highest diversity of fish species of anywhere in the world. So definitely worth spending some time going underwater if you can. Here's a Wagyu spotted cuscus. So as I say, most of the mammals throughout Papua have been hunted, but fortunately on the island of Wago, the cuscus doing well, and there's quite a few of them. We saw them most of the times we went out, and certainly at night, but even in the early morning. And this is a red bird of paradise. Again, like the lesser bird of paradise, where we watched the film a short while ago. Um, Similar and only occurring in this area. And again, it uses a tree to do an amazing display where it turns itself upside down, flashes around with its tail feathers, and tries to attract mates, and uses that as the sort of highest tree in the forest to um, be the king, and hopefully successfully find some good females come over to it. But the main reason for going there, and the thing that I was most excited about, was Wilson's bird of paradise. So it's been described as the most beautiful bird in the world, which I'm a bit skeptical of, to be honest. I mean, the sort of blue-brained, weird-looking thing, which as I say, I was super keen to see, and it is an amazing bird, but beautiful, I think, is pushing it a bit. Um, but we were very lucky, and there's two or three places where you can see them displaying, and we were very lucky to, when we were there, have good weather, because it's often very wet, and we had a great morning where we were able to watch them do this. And there you go. And it'll leave me to say thank you ever so much. You're very welcome to ask questions. I'll leave you with a local with proudly with his penis gourd. And yes, thank you ever so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was brilliant.
You're welcome,
What a
sir.
great photo to finish on. Um, and I must say, with the Wilson's Bird of Paradise, that's like just so jealous watching that. And I mean, 'cause I suppose we've all seen it on Attenborough, but you've just been so lucky to see it yourself like that. And like from what they were saying during Attenborough, the waiting that the best view is from above, and the female because she comes at it head on, and it's when it's like it opens the mouth, and it's got like the lime green mouth, and there's a sort of the metallic rim around the ruff. Yeah, just stunning birds, just like that. Was that a game in the 80s? Simon Says, and it was all the different colours. It's like the same colours from the sort of Wilson's Bird of Paradise. Anyway, thank you, Andrew. I'll pass you over to Nigel.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, that was quite a way to finish. Thank you very much indeed. But what a great talk, and fascinating. Could you say a little bit more about the bird of paradises, the sort of the reproduction? Are they all leckers? Are they all involved in multiple males trying to get multiple females, or do they vary?
I think they do vary, and I mean, you've got the classic one, which like the greater, lesser bird of paradise and the red, and they're very much leckers and communal living. You've got things like your sickle bills and astrapias that look quite different, and obviously you've got rifle birds and the ones that go into sort of northeast Australia. So they are quite different. I should know. I think it's about 46 odd species,
Right.
but paradise, something in that region, I believe. Um, and they're yeah, they are quite you often get similar variations on a theme, but then quite different groups. And as I say, things like the McGregor's honeyeater. There's been quite a few birds of paradise that have been grouped in the family and turfed out again over the
Hmm.
years with sort of evolutionary decisions,
Hmm.
taxonomy.
Yeah, that McGregor's honeyeater was superb. That's an endemic, is it, Andrew?
Yeah, and the Snow Mountains is probably the stronghold,
Yeah.
and again, I mean, quite a few of these species now, they're locals because they understand the importance of tourism and the money coming in, are good at finding new sites. I mean, I really do think Papua New Guinea is, and West Papua, are two areas that are really increasing in terms of the locals understanding them. As I say, they put food out at the lodges, but it doesn't really happen outside the lodges. And I think over the next decade or so, a lot more new sites will be found. So a
Yeah.
lot of the birds are just a couple of sites really at the moment, or a handful at best. And I
Hmm.
think they will find a lot more sites. And I think, it's as the sort of territorial disputes and the concerns about safety for tourists hopefully improve. And I think it'll grow a lot in tourism. Um,
Let's hope so. And are BirdLife International involved much on the island?
Yes, they are, and there's quite a few places like the Huon Peninsula and places that has got really good endemism that they're trying to work with locals and a lot of, as I said, it's lots of really small bits of land owned by different people. So any organization like BirdLife has to work with quite a few individuals, but because most valleys, particularly, still have sort of tribal headmen and that sort of
Hmm.
hierarchy, if they can persuade, and they have, the merits to the sort of committee of the village, or the headman, they're able to make quite good inroads, and naturally the rest of the villagers sort of beholden and follow the orders, as it were. So yeah, I've got quite good hopes for conservation. I mean, unfortunately, Papua New Guinea has a lot of important mineral resources. So there's some big Australian mines, and there's obviously quite a lot of logging and activity caused by mining and sort of exploitation. But there's still a lot of undisturbed, preserved habitat that you can't access at all, really. You can fly over it, but there's no easy way in.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Any other questions?
There's none in the
Andrew?
chat. I was going to say there's none in the chat, but in case anybody's interested, well, you will be interested, that Gabriel said he saw a dipper on the Kefney last Wednesday from the bridge between the bus stop and the dingle. So there's one still there.
Great, congratulations. That's a relief to hear. Thanks, Gabriel. Excellent. Well, that takes the Anglesey list up to 150 for the year.
Andrew, what was the woodcock that you got when you were there on PNG?
Papua New Guinea woodcock. Yeah. So in the Snow Mountains, if you get there, anyway, either dawn or dusk, you get them displaying, doing the sort of roading flights that you get with European woodcock. So in the Snow Mountains, it's one of the sort of reliable sites, really.
Do they sound much different?
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, it's that sort of yeah. I mean, if you saw one here and heard it, you probably you probably would think twice, but not hugely different. I mean, they're very much. I mean, I think woodcocks throughout the world. I mean, Sulawesi and elsewhere, they're pretty, pretty similar. And even a Marmie woodcock, you've got the sort of pink behind the eye, etc. But they're not hugely different, across the whole globe, I would say. American
So
woodcock might
similar
be
displays and that. 'Cause I mean, I suppose American woodcock doesn't that
Yeah, I was going to
display's
say
quite
American
magnificent,
woodcock's
isn't it?
probably the one, actually, and then the rest of the Eurasian one, probably all quite similar. Sorry, what were you going to say about American woodcock?
No, just like it's obviously that display is quite different from like Eurasian woodcock, but I suppose the ones, as you say, across the old world, they've all just evolved from Eurasian woodcock, haven't they? Just from being isolated for years on island chains and what have you. Yeah, but wow, no, some absolute stunning birds there. Um, you had the spooky moment with the Kaswari where it was just for a few split
Yeah.
second view. Is it, could you remind me? I can't remember the story. What was the story of the sandhill crane on Fur Island, the fog?
I want to say it was Roger Riddington, but I might have remembered the warden wrong. But basically, he thought he was alone wandering around Fair Isle one foggy day, and he shouted out to some birder ahead of him to see if he'd got anything. And then he realised it was a sandhill crane, and he just found it.
Wow. Did it just walk off into the fog?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no clue, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But no, the cassowary thing was, yeah, quite funny because I genuinely thought it was someone coming down the track towards us, and I was like, I can't believe anyone else is here. And then, split second, you realise what's going on.
Is dwarf cassowary on PNG?
Yeah, yeah,
Did you
which
get?
I haven't seen it. There's a place, Megalofluk, which in the west of West Indonesia, West Papua, that's seen quite regularly. There's boardwalk, and I've been to the boardwalk, but there's a boardwalk you can walk into the village, and it's seen, yeah, quite a lot. So yeah, they're getting more
And
like.
and southern cassowary that you get in Australia, is it a different species? Is it like 2 wattled or 3 wattled cassowary, something that you get in
There's
PNG?
northern, southern, and dwarf, but you get southern, which is the one I saw at Quato Camp, which is the Australian one.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Andrew, previous speakers, Alex and Steph, um, were proponents of do-it-yourself tours, but it strikes me probably that's not such a good idea for New Guinea. What's your feeling on that?
I think it's probably not. I mean, the two trips I've done, I mean, I quite like doing myself tours, and I've done that quite a lot around the world. But there's the logistical problems, but also there
Yeah.
is a bit of a security. I mean, like I said about when you hire a couple of the locals to go with you with machetes in case there's any trouble as
Mm,
you go down the
yeah.
road. I mean, there's ground agents you can use, so you can do it if you know there's a group of four of you or whatever. If use the local ground agents, I don't think
Mm,
there's probably any risks really. But yeah, I mean the Tim Flannery book I said about throwing my leg. I mean, he talks about how he did just travel because he was a mammal biologist from Wollongong near Sydney who just traveled in the I think probably 70s, 80s, and 90s throughout looking for mammals. And
mm,
he had quite a few dodgy instances, as you would expect, where locals were discussing whether to boil him up and
mm,
put him up and things. And I
mm,
think, although that's very unlikely, there's enough local tensions and enough risk that you've gone on to. I mean, if you stay on the road, even if you stay on the road, that road is owned by people, and you're constantly having to often pay the local person who comes out of the bushes to, you know, see what you're up to.
mm.
I think without a local guide and or interpreter, you could get yourself into a bit of bother.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, thanks for the warning.
It's, Susanna is asking, what is a betel nut?
Good questions. I think it is a nut. I'd have to Google it, I'm afraid. It's basically the green, and I did try one for the fun of it. But when you chew them, it produces this red sap that they mix with lime and salt, and it basically gives a bit of a stimulant effect, which they all seem to love and be addicted to, like we were to smoking years ago, I guess. And lorry drivers, I think, use it just so they can drive for 24 hours straight without having to stop. But I apologise. I don't know I assume it's from a tree, but I'd have to look it up. I don't know. Apologies.
Uh, I'm,
Basically, a low form of drug that they're all addicted to.
it's yeah, it is from a palm tree, um, a native palm tree, I think, in the tropics, where the nuts are found quite low down near ground level. Yeah.
Maybe Nigel.
How high up did you get, Andrew, for birds? Did you
Yeah,
get to the tree line or
yeah, just above. So I think Snow Mountain's sort of 1500, 1800-ish meters. Um,
right?
Snow Mountains was the highest we went.
Yes.
Yeah, first thing in the morning, it's a bit of a frost and a bit cold, but I mean, it's classic alpine
Yeah.
that by you know
Yeah.
late morning, lunchtime, you're baking already. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Still quite quite something,
yeah,
isn't it, to experience those temperatures pretty much on the equator. Mm,
and both our trips
yeah.
were very fortunate weather-wise, but I know people have had it where it's just wall-to-wall rain for the whole time, and a
Right.
lot of these
Uh,
places are pretty muddy on a good day. In terms of take wellies
mhm.
if you go. It is that sort of place, really.
Yeah. Well, lots of good advice there, as well as wonderful birds and other wildlife. Thank you for including those mouth-watering moths. They were amazing. But that was a splendid talk, Andrew. Really gave us great flavour for this island, and some of the difficulties of seeing it all. But that's all part and parcel, isn't it, of these far-off expeditions? And there's no gain without some pain when you're going that far. And expecting to see so much. It was wonderful. Really painted a great picture. Thank you very much indeed for both the illustrations, your immediate comments, and then for your thoughtful overview at the end. Yeah, this is a talk that'll live long in the memory and perhaps spur some people, maybe the younger ones amongst the audience, to head out there and experience it themselves. It'd be a wonderful experience, whatever. And good luck with your next trip. I hear you're off to the Far East again very shortly. I'm sure that's going to be fabulous. Maybe you'll think about coming back and telling us about that trip sometime in the future. But for tonight's talk, we thank you very much indeed. And good luck with all your continuing travels abroad, your ever-increasing bird list, of course, and for making this information accessible to all via talks like this. It's much appreciated. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and
You're very welcome. Thank you ever so
forward to
much.
seeing
Yeah, of
you.
course, I'd be happy to come back.
Thank
Thank you.